And if you call yourself a producer or an engineer, it is your responsibility and your job to be proficient at the tools that you are using. Welcome to the Rhythm Studio, where we're talking music production and music technology. I'm Warren Henry. If you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button and the alert bell so that you could be notified when we're releasing new videos. That said, let's get into it. In today's video, I'm going to discuss my method for manually setting a compressor. We're going to be using the Warm Audio WA-1B that I just purchased, as well as my old trusty Alesis 3630. Setting any compressor is not complicated. It begins and it ends with this. Let me explain. A compressor is a dynamics controlling tool. It is not an effects processor like a reverb or a digital delay unit. Time is essential to what happens in your DAW. Time is essential to what happens on the compressor in terms of the attack and the release time. And time is essential to recorded music. When you pick up a composition, what do you have? A time signature. What do you have also noted? The BPM per quarter note. So time is central to using this tool successfully. Keep this in mind. If you're trying to hear the compressor, it's going to be hard to hear shifts in sound that are happening in the 1 and 2 dB range, plus or minus. The human ear becomes quite sensitive to hearing sounds plus or minus 3 dB, plus or minus 4 dB. You get the idea. So if you're trying to hear minute changes in the dynamics, chances are you're not going to hear them. Because more often than not, what people say is that I can't hear the compressor, or I don't hear the compressor working. And that is not the job of a compressor. Albeit, compressors do have characters. FETs have a character. Diode bridges have a particular character to their sound, as does a tube-based compressor. I'm not saying that they don't. What I'm saying is that if you're trying to hear the unit, then you're trying to push it into doing something that it's not really designed to do. And keep this in mind as a producer and an engineer. A compressor is not designed to take care of poor mic technique. You know, if you're a producer or an engineer and you're trying to coach a vocal, you need to tell the vocalist, listen, if you got a loud passage, back off. Soft passages, lean in. So you might be saying at this point, Warren, what does all of this have to do with learning how to set a compressor manually? And I'll tell you this. Ignoring these points, and you're pretty much just twisting knobs and hoping for the best. And if you call yourself a producer or an engineer, it is your responsibility and your job to be proficient at the tools that you are using. So we can summarize the previous points by saying this. A compressor is a dynamics controlling tool. It is not an effects processor like a reverb or a delay. When you're dealing with a compressor, you're dealing with time, or a time-based tool in terms of the attack time and the release times that you're setting. A compressor is a musical tool that can work with you in terms of the music you're recording or against you. When we're talking about using this tool in context of music, then we have to consider time, note value, tempo, attack time, release time. Time is central to setting a compressor successfully. So without further ado, here is the real-time demonstration of me setting both the Warm Audio WA-1B as well as the Alesis 3630, getting my gain reduction goal that I state in the video. Check this out. So as we begin with our improperly set compressor, we can see the needle dancing. A dancing needle is a no-no when you're setting compression. That means that your attack and your release times are way too fast. Assuming that most of you all are recording vocals, we'll start with a threshold, which is improperly set at -40. We will set our threshold to -10. already we could see a change in gain reduction. However, we're not achieving our gain reduction goal of -3 dB. So what do? We first start with a normal ratio for compressing vocals, which is 2:1. Not much of a change in terms of gain reduction goal of -3 dB. So let's change the attack and the release time, which means I want it to hold a little longer, but now we're overshooting our gain reduction goal. So I have to change my attack time. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, now we're steadying out. Now we need to slow. Look at that. Now we're achieving our gain reduction goal of -3 dB. We're overshooting it just a bit. So let's change the attack time so this a little bit slower. The transients get through a lot better. Now we remember that setting compression, we have to keep time and tempo as a consideration. So we're slowly but surely adjusting our hold time. Look at that. Now finally we reach for our gain makeup, which is approximately 3 dB of makeup gain. And we can see we're achieving our gain reduction goal of -3. We'll back off just a bit so we stay in the -3. Just overshooting it just a touch, but that's what we want. This will not allow you to hear any breathing during the release time. If we set it slow, we see how long it's going to hold it a little bit longer. Look at that. The release time is in beat with the tempo. 3 different dynamics. Do, bop, beep, Release time is in step with the music, and release time is in step with the tempo of the metronome. If we wanted it even slower, less noticeable, we could keep changing the attack time, let more transients through. Now, this is a normally set compressor. If your needle is dancing wildly, your attack and your release times are not set properly. So let me botch this up again. Let's botch it up. Botch it all the way up. Botch it all the way up. Botched up compressor, right? We want to achieve a gain reduction of -7. So I'm going to change the ratio to maybe 4:1. Let's set the threshold for -10 again as a starting point. And let's put the release time slower, much slower. Attack it faster. Now we could do this 2 ways. How about if we change the threshold? Look at that. We're getting towards -7. Let's hold it a little bit longer. Remember, you cannot hear volume changes of less than 1 dB. 5 to 7 is 2. Plus or minus 3 dB is more noticeable. But see, the release time is not letting it get down to 4. Or less, rather. So let's hold it a little bit longer. And if it releases in step with the beat, you're in a safe place. So let's change that ratio to about 5:1. Look what happens. Now we're controlling the dynamic a lot better. You can't be heavy-handed twisting the knobs or willy-nilly. The goal is to achieve a gain reduction goal. And in this time, we wanted a gain reduction goal of -7. So let's botch up our compressor again, because the guy that came the night before us Let's turn it to 10 to 1. Let's start over. A gain reduction goal of just kissing the peaks. Gain reduction goal of -2 for vocals. So we'll start about maybe 3 to 1. Let's let most of the transients get through. But see, we're releasing too fast. Bap, 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 wrong. So let's go here. Let's fix this. That's too much. That's too much. And let's back this threshold back down to something that's normal, which is -10. So we want to kiss the peaks at about -2 dB. Don't forget we have to set our makeup gain when we're coming back. So let's hold. Let's get them peaks a little bit more. Let's hold a little bit longer. All right. Okay, still reacting a little bit too fast. Let's let him. Look how close we're getting to. That's that. Let's back off. And let's back off the threshold as well, so that the compressor reacts a little slower. The reaction time in terms of gain reduction. And we've achieved our goal of -2. Keeping it in step again with the beat. Okay, so we're just kissing the peaks now. So that's essentially how I set a compressor. I could achieve the same goal. Hit the camera. I could achieve the same goal with any compressor. So let's botch our compressor up again. Bam, boom, bop. Turn that all the way crazy. And that's crazy. And make this crazy. Okay. So we want to get back to setting our compressor to give us -3 dB of gain reduction. We're recording vocals, don't forget. So let's get back to a vocal compression ratio. Let's start with 2 to 1. Let's set our threshold down to -10. That's a safe place to start. We're going to have to change the attack time, but the release time is going to give us a little bit more of a hold. So let's change the attack time so that it's less responsive. And look at that. -3 dB. We'll make up the gain. Makeup gain will be -3 dB. And we've achieved our gain reduction goal. If we don't want it to respond in terms of release time, we can make the release time slower and slower. And we're kissing at -3 dB on the average. Okay, make it a little slower. I have 3 different dynamics happening right now. Pop, boop, because they're representing 3 different volume levels. Hard, soft, and visible. 3 and 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4th beat is invisible. So there I've showed you how to set your warm audio compressor. I'm going to botch it up again. Bam, boom, bop, bam. Look at this. I botched it up. I'm the guy who was using the compressor the night before, right? So let's just straight up, let's see, we want a gain reduction goal of -5, right? To the beat. So let's go with a compression ratio of about maybe 5 to 1. We don't want it to react that quick, so we need to change the threshold, the trigger point. Let's go back to -10. -5. Hold. Back it off. Hold it a little longer. Hold. Look at that. Yep. Look at that. -5. And of course, we have to fix the makeup gain to reflect a makeup gain of +5. Okay? Because we're taking away 5 dB, we need to add the 5 dB back to keep us at our nominal level of -18 dB FS. in your DAW. So this is essentially how you set a compressor, boys and girls. I'm not going to belabor you with a whole lot of fluff, but this is all part of a series that I'm doing in the future that will show you how to properly use your dynamics when you are recording. Okay? They're dynamics tools. I could achieve this same goal with any compressor, including this one up here. And in a future video, I will show you how. Okay? So let's change that. Let's change that, Let's go, Let's make it a little bit more. Get closer to 5. Let's make it, see, you gotta make baby steps. And let's change the threshold to maybe where it is. Okay, look at that. Look at that. Achieve, goal achieved. -5 dB compression level. So there I've showed you several times me just botching it up, setting it improperly. Look at this. Slow attack, fast release. That makes no sense, right? So here it is. I botched it all the way up. Botched up. Botched. Right? And if I want to achieve any compression goal in terms of gain reduction and in terms of release time to the beat of the music, I could achieve that goal. And that's how I essentially set a compressor. Hope that helps. And here we go. Let's botch up again. Let's just totally botch up the settings. Okay? Including the output, different compressor, same approach. Okay? Let's start with our threshold. This is the Alesis 3630. I'm going to achieve the same gain reduction goal of -3. Okay? That's our goal. So we're going to start the same way. I'll start with my threshold at -10. And you can see automatically we're triggering compression, but it's triggering way too far. It's at -6. So we want to achieve a gain reduction goal of -3. Let's change our ratio to 2:1 because that's a good starting point for vocals. Change our attack time. Maybe let more of the transients through, or maybe not. Every compressor setting is going to be different. So here we are at the attack. We're at -2. Long release time of 3 seconds. So because we're not getting to -3, maybe we need to bump up the ratio just a bit. Or maybe not. How about let's change the threshold that it's triggering at. Look what happens now. We're getting into the -3. So, okay. So let's change the attack time, make it faster. Okay, let's back off the threshold a bit. And just like that, we're averaging -3 dB of gain reduction. Maybe change the release time. Let's go back. As opposed to 3 seconds, let's go with 2 seconds on the release time. Let's let more of the transients through. I changed the attack time, made it a little bit slow, let some of the transients through, and guess what we got? A gain reduction of -3. And with that, we're going to change our output to match. About +3. So you can see, even on the input-output side, we're set to output. You can see -2 is lighting. and we were going for -3. So we're getting that -1 dB variable in there. But we've achieved our gain reduction goal of -2. It's all the same thing. You know, time, tempo, release time, they all play into it. You know, a release time that is too fast is going to have it breathing, but we want to hold it so that it doesn't counteract the note value. You know, you have to consider the note value. You're recording music, so it's hard to ignore. But what's a fact is that you can see we're achieving our gain reduction goal of -3. And if I botch this up all over again, which I will do, just turn knobs randomly, I botched it, right? But here it is, I'm gonna start again. If I'm recording vocals, I always start with -10 as a trigger point. A 2-to-1 ratio is a fair start, you know? If I had the attack time too fast, there is no gain reduction. So we need to trim transients a bit. You know, suppose you had a singer that didn't have good mic technique. You have to take that into consideration. So, you know, here we are with quick attack time. Let's hold it in the release time. Let's make the release time longer so that it doesn't counteract the note value of whatever it is that you're recording. It's all the same thing. So far we're just about getting our -3. What if we wanted more gain reduction, -5? We're just going to change the ratio a bit. And just by changing the ratio, you know, we just want more compression. That's all we want. Is a little bit more compression. So it's the same thing over and over again. You know, it gets down to no value. What if we wanted to trigger it earlier, trigger the compression faster? We change the threshold and we get quicker reaction out of when compression is going to take place. What if we wanted more of the transients to get through? We're going to have to adjust the attack time so that more of the transients get through. And look what happens when we do that. More of the transients get through, but we have less gain reduction. So all the random knob turning that you might see taking place on, you know, YouTube, you know, God bless them, God love you, you know, but, you know, in essence, it gets down to, you know, how much gain reduction does this signal need while I'm recording? Nothing more, nothing less. I use the compressor as a tool. It's a dynamics controlling tool. It is not an effects processor. It is not a reverb unit. It's not digital delay. It's there to control dynamics. Sometimes some people have poor technique musically, whether it's a vocalist, guitarist, or whomever. They don't understand that they need maybe play a little softer, louder at certain points in time within the composition that you might be recording. The fact is that if you get them to work with you in this fashion and you could manage their dynamics by, you know, using a compressor, it's going to help you. It's going to give you a more balanced sound. It's going to let you not have to use so many plugins when you're mixing. You know, it's just going to make everything monumentally easier for you down the road. It's better to add just -3 dB on the front end and then add a little bit more as a plugin later on, as opposed to getting all heavy-handed, going all in, you know, triggering this much gain reduction, you know, because you got the ratio set to a limiting ratio, which is like about right now. This is set to, you know, infinity to 1 or 10 to 1. Look at the amount of gain reduction. That's insane. You know, so it's better for you to just back off the trigger point, you know, to something that's normal, you know, -10 decibels above, you know, 0 dB is a good starting point, you know, and a normal ratio for vocals. No more than 4, you know, 2, 3, 4 to 1. Anytime you start getting to 5:1 and greater, you're entering into limiting ratios. Good for guitars, good for, loud, screaming passages, on certain instruments, that is, So the object is a little bit now, a little bit later, it makes it all sit tight in the mix. That's my approach, So here it is. I've done it with both the Warm Audio and the Alesis. Expensive and cheap. Indisputable fact. You could achieve any compression ratio you want. If you say I want -3 dB on a vocal, which is a good starting place, then you get that. Just, you have to know, your attack, your release times can't counteract the note value, and you have to take your time. You can't be heavy-handed twisting knobs all willy-nilly without having a goal. If you aim at nothing, you will hit nothing every time. If your compression goal is to have -3 dB of gain reduction, then that's it. Because the ear can't perceive something greater or rather less than, or within the range of, I should say, of -1, -2 dB. You can't hear that. But -3 dB and greater, or if you got here, you're going to hear this. This is -12. Listen to it. Wow, wow, wow. The release time is too long. So you're going to have to extend the release time so you get less dancing out of the meter. So this little difference right here, you're not going to hear. But look at the whole time. But if you change the release time to something fast and you start getting this, the release time this quick, you're going to hear that. That's breathing that's going to take place. This is an improperly set compressor. Fast attack, fast release. Unless you're going for effect. I mean, you can use it creatively. I'm not saying don't. But what I am saying is that before you break the rules, you have to first know the rules. You have to understand that this is a tool. It's not an effects processor. It's a tool to control dynamically loud passages recorded in music. For me, that's nothing more, nothing less. So it starts and ends with what gain reduction do I want on the signal? And how do I achieve it so that it's not dancing like this, which is indicative of a breathing compressor, so that the release time is longer and you get less of the breathing? Because that's imperceptible. You can't hear this. But guess what? The ear can hear this. Because this is not normal. Okay? So there I've done it with 2 compressors. That's the technique I use, the technique I've been using for over 40 plus years. It's worked for me. I believe in using a little in each step because it's just like salt. Too much in the beginning, it's going to ruin the whole dish. Okay? So there you have it. How to set your compressor manually. In the comments below, feel free to ask any question and I'll try to get back to as many as I can. But for right now, thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for stopping in. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and say hello to the family for me.